Welcome back to Silverstone, everybody. Our second race of the weekend for the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship. The sun is still shining over the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and yesterday's first race of the weekend was a very competitive one indeed. We thought it would be after what was an incredibly close qualifying session yesterday morning that saw the sort of leading 10 cars or so all running at more or less the same pace, and that kind of continued into the first 25-minute race of the weekend. There are the cars in the assembly area waiting to come out onto the circuit, and when they do, they will be released once again for another 25-minute race. There is no 40-minute pit stop race this weekend. Those of you who tuned in at Donington Park last time out may remember that we had the introduction of the feature race with a mandatory pit stop in the middle. Well, that's not here this weekend just because of time constraints surrounding the Silverstone 500, which obviously takes a little bit longer than most British GT races do, but we'll be back to that format, I believe, for Donington Park next time out. Ginetta G56 safety car then pulls out of the assembly area and will be followed closely by our front row starters. Archie Clark, 3 race wins from 3 races so far for the early championship leader, and Hadley Simpson, who got his first podium of the season earlier on in the weekend. And row 2, Robert Cronin and Nick White also claiming podiums, although both of those coming at Donington Park last time out. So yeah, early doors in the championship, I know, but Archie Clark with a healthy lead, 47 points clear of Nick White coming into this race. Really crucial that Nick and the Robert Cronin and Hadley Simpson really try and take some points out of Archie Clark. Clark, in fairness, did not lead the entirety of yesterday's race, far from it. It was a great battle between Clark, Simpson, Cameron Pratt-Thompson, who was third, Nick White was up there, Harry Gamble was in the lead group, Mackenzie Douglas came charging through as well on his return to the championship. Mackenzie Douglas, our reigning champion, carrying the number 1 on his car, didn't race with us at Donington, but he's out for Silverstone. Hopefully he'll be tempted back to do a few more rounds later this season, because if he were to commit to a full year, with dropped scores coming into play, he could still be a factor for the championship, and certainly could be a factor for race wins. He starts quite a bit further up the order this time, 6th place on the grid. This grid based upon the second fastest lap times from qualifying yesterday, so it's a slightly different look to the running order. Yesterday, for that first race of the weekend, we had, as I said, that really close qualifying session. To be fair, Archie Clark and Hadley Simpson were towards the front of that grid as well, but it's so close between that leading half dozen or so, it's fairly interchangeable. You feel like at any given qualifying session, you could get a different driver on pole. It was Simpson who got pole for the first race by 1/10 of a second over Cameron Pratt-Thompson. Nick White was third, and Archie Clark, the eventual winner, coming through from 4th on the grid. He was third after the first corner and then picked his way through the order quite nicely to grab the lead late in the going. Cars then released onto the green flag lap, and as they head off, the drivers will take a look at what the conditions are like out there. It's been almost 24 hours since they were out on circuit, probably almost exactly 24 hours since they were last out on circuit, and conditions may have changed slightly since then. It's a little bit warmer today, I think, than it was yesterday. Of course, there's a lot of rubber laid down after that 3-hour GT race that has not long since concluded. So conditions may well be a little bit different to what they were yesterday. The grid then as follows, as I said, based upon the second fastest lap times from qualifying. Archie Clark and Hadley Simpson make up the front row of the grid. If Clark can win from 4th, what can he do from pole this afternoon? Robert Cronin and Nick White are together on row 2. Nick White, the leading Pro-Am driver on the grid. Then it's Cameron Pratt-Thompson and Mackenzie Douglas sharing row 3. Douglas, like I said, several positions further up the grid today than he was yesterday. Jack Collins and Harry Gamble make up the 4th row of the grid. Row 5 for Mike Taylor and Ali Jafali. And Ali is the leading AM driver on the grid. The AM class battle was just as fascinating as the overall lead battle yesterday, and it likely will be today. Luke Shaw and Peter Mangion on row 6 also looking for an AM victory. So too will be Carl Garnett, who starts 7th on the 7th row alongside Alex Duncan. Emma Tomlinson and Colin White are on row 8. 9th row for James Townsend and Oliver Fordham, with Amy Tomlinson bringing up the rear. So the cars weaving around, getting some heat into their slick racing tyres. The field led, as I said, by Archie Clark That AM class I referred to, won yesterday by Luke Shaw with Ali Jafali in second. Pro-Am, Nick White and Harry Gamble were the two doing battle, and they were also separated by only 0.3 of a second. Now, the issue there really was that they were very much a part of the fight for an overall podium place, and at times that led to a little bit of peril for Nick White, who we're right on board with now. That was good timing. The Raceway Motorsport driver had to really defend his class win, but whilst also mixing it with the pros, and that's something we've seen from Nick White in the past. When he was in the GT Academy series, he went in there as a rookie and was immediately fighting for overall race wins. So we know that Nick is a really, really strong driver. That's why he's in Pro-Am, not Am. Yeah, he was really sort of stuck in a difficult position yesterday, shall we say, trying to defend his class win, but also go for overall positions. Emma Tomlinson there also carrying one of the onboard cameras. Emma will be starting towards the back of the field. She was the only non-finisher yesterday, retiring at the end of lap 1. So, drivers then are heading through Luffield Corner. The white and blue MDD car, that is your championship leader, Archie Clark, unbeaten so far in 2025. Can he make it 4 wins from 4 races this afternoon? Well, Hadley Simpson in the yellow, white and black number 37 car will certainly be hoping not. He runs with Zentech Motorsport. And then Robert Cronin starting 3rd on the grid. Well, he's one of the elite brigade, so 3 different teams in the top 3 positions on the grid. Who comes out victorious then? In round 4 of the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship, the lights go out towards Copse Corner. They rumble, and it might be 3 abreast for the race lead here. To the outside was looking Nick White. He bailed out of it, though, and so it's between Archie Clark and Hadley Simpson. Simpson on the outside line will try and carry the momentum down towards Beckett. We've seen in other races the outside line at Beckett's can work. He's got his nose ahead. He'll have the momentum. He's on the dirty side of the road, but it might not matter. Hadley Simpson, no, can't make it stick. They might have touched slightly there as they turned into the left-hander, but it will be Archie Clark who retains the advantage. There's definitely a touch further back. Sideways goes the 33 machine, and a good catch there by Mike Taylor, who was tipped into a half spin, but managed to gather it all together. Down the hanger straight for the first time. Somebody on the grass there midway through the field. Alex Duncan that was, I think, but it is a race lead for Archie Clark, and he has done part 1 of his job right. Now he's going to try and defend that lead for the next 24 minutes of the race. First side-by-side battle, I think, will be for 3rd place. Now that's, wow, that's Mackenzie Douglas. Mackenzie Douglas from 6th on the grid takes 3rd away from Nick White as they arrive down at the Club Chicane. So Mackenzie Douglas to 3rd, White 4th, side-by-side then for 5th position. On the outside line is Cronin. So Cronin's gone backwards here from 3rd on the grid. He might be about to drop to 6th behind Donington Park podium finisher Harry Gamble. Gamble on the inside into Abbey, and I think Cronin's going to have to give that one up. Otherwise, he'll lose another one to Jack Collins, who goes wide, and not quite as wide as Ali Jafali, I think that was behind, who bounced all over the curb and the grass coming out of Abbey Corner. Down through Village in the loop they go. That's the 39 car trying to work its way through. That's Cameron Pratt-Thompson as ahead. Nick White again is wide, and this time opens the door for Harry Gamble. So Gamble just gained a place at the expense of Cronin, and is now trying to do the same sort of thing to Nick White, who stays ahead for now. Down the Wellington Straight then, into the braking zone at Brooklands. Archie Clark, the leader, late lunge up the inside for Gamble. That's a nice move if he makes it stick. He's up the curb on the inside line. Nick White gives him a very wide berth, almost drives off the track completely, and in the end makes that rather easier for Gamble than it probably should have been. And Gamble, that was an interesting tactic there. That was for the class lead as well, bear in mind. They're both Pro-Am drivers, but just by diving to the inside like that, almost forced Nick White into leaving the door open. And Nick, who does drive usually on the side of caution, and that's why he is one of the more consistent drivers on the grid, and has been in the past in GT Academy. That was always kind of his motto, just make sure you finish all the races, the points will take care of themselves. And I think he's deploying the same sort of strategy in the GT Championship. He has, though, dropped away already from Gamble. He's now got the 26 of Robert Cronin tucked up behind him as they head through the Maggots-Beckett sequence for the first time. This is where there was a little bit of contact on the opening lap. Here's the replay. First of all, look at the leaders. Hadley Simpson, I think, did get into the back slightly of Archie Clark, who did well to catch it. And then keep an eye in the background there. It's Cameron Pratt-Thompson, I think, who comes steaming up the inside of Mike Taylor into the right-hander. Taylor gets sideways. Luke Shaw there, the 21, dives out of line to avoid the slowing 33 car. And a couple of good bits of car control there through the first sequence of corners. Leaders then down through the club chicane once again. Archie Clark again, not really getting away. This was very much what we saw yesterday. Didn't seem to matter who was in the lead. It was very, very difficult to pull a gap on the cars behind. And for Archie Clark, that appears to be the case once again. Heads down through the right-hander at Abbey, with only a couple of car lengths advantage over Simpson in second. There is the leading group. Mackenzie Douglas, though, is the man on the move, isn't he? In third position. He was quicker than the leaders on the first couple of sectors of this lap. And it's very much a three-horse race now out in front. Clark, Simpson, Douglas, your top three. They're all pro drivers. Gamble, of course, having got ahead of Nick White for fourth, is also now the Pro-Am leader. Ali Jafali leads in Am still. Jafali at the start of the lap was nearly a full second ahead of Luke Shaw and Carl Garnett in the top three positions within the Am class. All of the Ams have very helpfully put themselves together at the bottom of the order, so they're not mixing it too much with the Pro-Ams just yet. Board with Nick White, second in Pro-Am. Ahead of us is our target, the class leader Harry Gamble. But Nick White not close enough really to make Harry defend for the time being. The best thing that could happen really for Nick White is if Gamble can sort of become a part of the overall top three battle. Might bring him back into Nick White's clutches then. Nick, though, in fairness, has his hands full with Jack Collins behind, and Robert Cronin and Cameron Pratt-Thompson. They're all pretty close in behind Nick White at the moment. Move being made there further back by the number 3. That's Townsend on the inside of Oliver Fordham. James Townsend then picking up a place. As Nick White, I think that was, kicks up the dirt through Beckett's, using all of the curb on the inside of the right-hander. And then a similar approach taken by Jack Collins through the next corner. Means he drifts a little bit wide. That's compromised his exit speed now, and so Cronin will be on the attack. Cronin in the slipstream then, going for 6th position. Is there going to be a positional change here at Stowe Corner? A defensive line taken by Collins, not defensive enough though. Cronin saw the chance, goes to the inside. The front bodywork there scraping on the ground slightly, but it doesn't stop him gaining the place. And that was all set up really a couple of corners earlier with that small mistake from Jack Collins. Collins now will try to retaliate into the club chicane. He's going for it on the inside, but then Cronin had that one covered. It's very difficult to outbrake somebody into club unless you're already alongside them really. So the leaders then come out onto the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. Clark, Simpson, Douglas, then the gap back to Gamble, who leads Pro-Am. Nick White given a temporary respite with the battle that broke out behind him there. Cronin, who takes 6th place away, but that is 4th place in class. This championship, unlike GT Academy, for example, where you score points within your class, in the GT Championship you score points based on your overall finishing position. So obviously at the end of the season, the Pro-Am or Am driver with the most points will be the champion within their class. Here is that replay of the move for Cronin. The bodywork just, I think, grinding on the circuit there as he turned into Stowe, but he was making an overtake at the time, so I don't think it's slowing him down particularly. But yeah, back to the points situation. It does mean that actually if you have an opportunity to get ahead of some of the pros, for example, if you're a Pro-Am, then that is worth genuine championship points. And it also means that a Pro-Am could technically fight for the overall championship. Well, Mr. Consistency himself, Nick White, is second in the championship. He's a Pro-Am driver, but he's second overall in the points. 8 points clear of Robert Cronin, who's a pro. The best placed of the Am drivers is Luke Shaw in 8th place in the championship. But the Am's not quite mixing it with the higher classes so far in this one. There is Harry Gamble then, changing direction, using all of the curb on the inside edge of the track there, but if they're not monitoring track limits on the inside edge of the corners, then there's nothing stopping you doing that. The distinctively liveried Hooch number 23 car is gapping Nick White, definitely. Lead gap down ever so slightly as well at the moment. It was a new fastest lap for the race leader Archie Clark on the previous lap, but he was only 1,000th of a second quicker than Hadley Simpson. That's remarkably evenly matched pace between the leading two. And over the first part of this lap, Simpson actually a couple of tenths quicker. Back down through the Vale comes the 5th place squabble. Collins then with the bit between his teeth to try and get back ahead of Cronin, but Cronin, of course, is closing in on Nick White, so 5th position really is the one that they're set to do battle over, and Nick White needs to be careful here because, with what I just said in mind, you score points based on your overall finishing position, so if hypothetically he were to lose a few places to these pro drivers, it's going to cost him in the championship. Down towards Village, through the first of the tight hairpins that were introduced, what, 15, 16 years ago now, maybe more, onto the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Cronin very wide out of the loop. You can see that he just got on the throttle a little bit too early there. It's a difficult corner, the loop. A few drivers have told me that because the track is so wide and it's such a tight corner, you actually can't see the edge of the road at the point at which you have to hit the throttle. And so it's easy to pick up that throttle a little bit too early, thinking that you're nearly through the corner, and actually the trajectory of your car is taking you right out to the edge of the road. That's what happened to Cronin. He might now have dirt on his tyres, and so Jack Collins is trying to take advantage of that as they round Luffield and head through Woodcote Corner again. Collins then settles into 7th for now. The leaders head through only half a second apart. Again, remarkably evenly matched pace out in front. Clark with another new fastest lap at 2:11.267. That time an enormous 5 1/1000ths of a second quicker than Hadley Simpson. So that gap really isn't changing at all. They are both, though, a few tenths quicker than Mackenzie Douglas in 3rd place. So Douglas, who may have won the championship last year, but of course that was in a very different kind of car. The new engine in the V8 engine in the G56s for this year means that it's a level playing field for them all. This is the battle for the AM class win. Ali Jafali and Luke Shaw. And Ali Jafali, again, same story in all 3 classes, isn't it? Just can't get away from his nearest rival. They are 4.2 seconds ahead of Carl Garnett, though. And Colin White has moved up into 4th place now in the class. So Colin White having a good run. But in AM, Jafali and Shaw, that's the battle. And Luke Shaw, who is, as I said, the best of the AMs in the championship, and Ali Jafali is 2nd place in the AM class at the moment. But roles reversed on track this afternoon at Silverstone. Jafali, a massively improved driver. Seem to remember the season opener last year at Donington Park. He was floundering a little bit, really, in the, I think it was the GT Academy last year, wasn't he, Jafali? With a few spins along the way, but over the season got quicker and quicker. Now is a genuine contender within the AM class of the GT Championship. Back to 5th place, Nick White, Colin Cronin. Battle raging on now. Cronin sort of got back into the rhythm, closed in on Nick White. But where can he make a move? These cars are so evenly matched, and the drivers likewise. It's very, very difficult to make an overtake in this championship. It's not particularly because you can't follow closely. This was a talking point at times during the British GT race earlier on. All of the aerodynamics on a GT racing car, particularly a GT3, mean that it is hard to follow through some of the high-speed corners at Silverstone. These cars, though, specifically designed for that not to be an issue. They've got no front aero at all, so there's no fancy front splitter on the cars, no little aero wings at the side of the front bodywork. The only openings in the front bodywork are there for cooling, not for aerodynamics. You've got the rear diffuser, which will create a little bit of dirty air, but really it's very minimal. And the reason they're running so closely together is just because they're evenly matched, not because they can't get any closer than that because of dirty air. Another fastest lap now for Archie Clark, 2:10.661, and that time he was genuinely 3.5 tenths quicker than Hadley Simpson. So that is the 3rd lap in a row, I think, now that Clark has set the fastest lap of the race, but this time decisively quicker than Archie Clark. There is confirmation of that fastest lap that I just mentioned, a 2:10.661. And now the gap creeping out to 8.5 tenths or so. It's about 8.5 tenths covering all 3 of these cars. Nick White, Robert Cronin, and Jack Collins out of Stowe. Down into the braking zone at Club. Does Cronin think about the inside? Not really. To be fair, he's close to Nick White, but he's not really forcing Nick to defend. This is what Nick White does best. I think I might have referred this to this in yesterday's race. He doesn't defend unless he absolutely has to. And then, even when he does, it's just one clear move. He's not weaving around. He doesn't tend to outbrake himself or make a big mistake. He just keeps it nice and cool and only defends when he absolutely has to. He's a very, very difficult man to overtake for that reason. Luke Shaw dropping away now slightly from Ali Jafali. Previous lap, Shaw was well, only a 2 tenths slower. It was a personal best lap for both of these two. Had almost the whole AM class set personal best laps last time around. But I think on this lap so far, Jafali is going quicker. Yeah, personal bests in the first 2 sectors, and he's taken about 2 tenths or so out of Luke Shaw so far on this lap. So the battle for 5th turns through Brooklands Corner. Nick White, Robert Cronin, Jack Collins. Oh, bit of a wobble there for Cronin as he turned through Luffield Corner. accelerate back around then to the completion of another lap. We're into the second half now of this 25-minute race. It's been a slow burner so far. One of those kind of pressure cooker races, sort of, isn't it? Where you kind of know that something's going to happen, someone's going to try and make a move. But I think people learned from that race earlier on today that if you do go for the move and it doesn't work, it will usually cost you a place, or at least you'll have to spend the next 2 or 3 corners fending somebody else off, because you go for a move, you lose momentum by overtaking. It's one of the fundamental elements of racecraft across any category, but particularly a one-make class as evenly matched as this. By running side by side, you lose a lot of momentum and you can end up losing a few positions. 3/4 of a second then, give or take, between the leading two. Personal best lap time for Hadley Simpson last time, 1/10 of a second quicker than the leader. So they're just trading lap times. It's going to take a mistake, I think, isn't it, for Archie Clark to open the door for Simpson, who knew how important that run through the first few corners was. If only he'd have completed that pass around the outside into Beckett's on lap 1, he might just have would have had control of the race, at least for a while. And that's why he was so desperate to try and make something happen at the start. Now you can see the gap back to Douglas 3rd, Pro-Am leader Gamble 4th, and this battle for 5th place. Still the same positions, still just as close, but still Nick White not feeling the need to drive in his mirrors too much. And I wonder who Nick White's had as a driver coach, because imagine it was a driver coach who has sort of helped guide him through these on-track battle situations, and someone's taught him to not drive in the mirrors, even when under intense pressure. Maybe it's just a natural tendency that he has. Either way, it's a very useful skill to be able to drive with constant pressure from another car like this and not make a mistake, touch wood. Black and white warning flag for Jack Collins for exceeding track limits. He's the first driver to be given that warning in this race. So Jack Collins then with, on his last strike basically. If he does it again, it'll be a 5-second penalty applied. Track limits only monitored at certain parts of the circuit, so I think Copse, Stowe, Club are the big 3. Sometimes the exit of Luffield Corner, but I don't think they are monitoring that this weekend. So you can sort of get away with it elsewhere, but those are the corners that, particularly Copse and Stowe, where there is a lot of tarmac runoff area on the edge of the track. They've actually implemented a gravel trap now on the exit of Club Corner, which sort of deters drivers from running too wide over on the international element of the circuit. Great shots as the 5th place battle continues to wind its way around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Look at the gap those top 2 have pulled over Mackenzie Douglas. That's very impressive to be doing that to the reigning champion. Douglas, I'm sure, will say that if he were to come back and do another round in the championship, and I'll repeat my thoughts from the start of the race, I hope we do get to see him do that, but he would probably say that they might go a little bit of a different way on setup. I'm sure with every lap that he does in the car, he'll be learning something about it. He's a whole race event behind the rest of them as far as experience and learning, and he will, I'm sure, get his head around it should he choose to stick around for a bit more racing this year. Through Abbey Corner, cars rumble through the quick right-hander, then through Village. This is one of the better battles going on the track at the moment. Emma Tomlinson 16th, Oliver Fordham 17th, but it is for 6th position in the AM class. And Emma Tomlinson rounds Club under pressure now, definitely in the DTO racing car. Saw Emma getting in the thick of some of the battles at Donington last time. And again here is engaged in an on-track battle. Now typically, just as we took our attention off this group, it's changed. Through has gone Robert Cronin. He's got himself ahead of Nick White, and Robert Cronin then moves into 5th position. Nick White climbs the curb there. He's now, again, just got to be careful not to lose momentum and lose his rhythm. Losing a position will do that to you. He's had a pretty empty racetrack in front of him all race, Nick White. Suddenly he's following another car, and that will just be a slight distraction. Collins wants to try and take advantage of that, peels to the inside, but again, White doesn't really fully defend, just moves half a car's width over, but then that won't really impede his exit speed too much. Collins almost pushing him down towards Maggots and Beckett's, and keep an eye on Cameron Pratt-Thompson as well. He's the 3rd car in this battle as they fly through Maggots and Beckett's. Nick White's car moving around underneath him over the curb. And Jack Collins with a lot of pressure now on his shoulders. He's attacking Nick White, but Cameron Pratt-Thompson has used that to close right in on both of the cars ahead of him. Robert Cronin will be delighted. He's now starting to escape. This, I believe, is how Nick White lost the position. Oh, a little bit of a snap of oversteer. Just as he turned into the loop, that carried the car wide. It's something Robert Cronin did, actually, a handful of laps ago there. And then that was just enough to allow Cronin on the inside. Oh, that's what really did it. Nick White then drove himself completely off the circuit at Aintree and made the job pretty easy for Cronin. Now, what can Jack Collins do? He's forcing a defensive move out of Nick White. Suddenly, Nick does look a little bit less comfortable. And as they round Club Corner, Jack Collins can sense an opportunity. Maybe through the same part of the circuit, he can force another mistake out of the driver of car 57. They turn through Abbey, then it's Farm, and then we head into the Village and Loop section where it all went a little bit wrong for Nick White a lap ago. He hits the brakes, the nose of the car dips down. He's got a bit wide again there, has he, through Village, I think, and Jack Collins can see a chance, looks to the inside. Nick White's got it covered. Has he made the corner this time? Again, there's a snap of oversteer midway through the turn, but this time he keeps it within the white line, so don't think Nick White's car is all that happy. Something that Mike Simpson from Ginetta was explaining to us yesterday. The drivers are limited on the amount of tyres. Well, it has to be the same set of tyres that carries them all the way through qualifying and both races. Even if they're running the longer 40-minute race as the feature, they have to do that race on the same tyres that they qualified on and ran race 1 on. And that may well just be hampering Nick White now slightly. Lead gap, by the way, has come right down. It's a fastest lap for Hadley Simpson. So Hadley Simpson, 4.5 tenths quicker than the leader on the previous lap. Purple, second and third sectors of 2-minute 10.344. That's 3 tenths quicker than anything Archie Clark has done. To be fair, Archie was only a tenth of a second off the previous fastest lap pace. So Hadley Simpson has unlocked something now. He's clearly looked after his tyres. He's got plenty of life left in them. Has he got enough, though, to wrestle the lead away from Archie Clark? We're inside the final 4.5 minutes or so, but this gap is now the smallest that it's been all race. In fairness, though, Clark responds then with a purple first sector, so I'm very impressed with the pace that they're able to carry on old tyres. That's credit to Pirelli, I suppose, the tyre supplier for this championship this year, that they've given them a tyre that is capable of doing all of this running and clearly not giving up any pace. So the leaders turn through Club. No real sliding around, is there, from the leaders? Their cars look pretty settled underneath them. But Hadley Simpson, having closed back in, now of course needs to do the really difficult bit, which is getting past Archie Clark. It's something no one's really been able to do all season long. Clark had to come from behind in the race yesterday. At Donington Park, he was ahead for basically the entirety of race 1. Obviously there was the pit strategy in the second race. But beyond that, it was a very, very settled affair for Clark once he got into the lead. This is anything but settled. This is the battle for 7th place. It's Patrick Collins and Cameron Pratt-Thompson. So Collins has suddenly, sorry, Jack Collins has suddenly dropped away from Nick White, hasn't he? I don't know whether Collins has had a moment somewhere, but Cameron Pratt-Thompson definitely close. Well, it's not necessarily that he's closer to Collins, but Collins is a lot further away from Nick White now. Yeah, the second and third sectors weren't very good for Collins, so I think he might have had a moment somewhere around Stowe or Club, which has then put him on the back foot and meant that he's lost a bit more time. So through they go again. The leaders this time are separated by back to 3/4 of a second again, because Clark has near enough matched that fastest lap pace from Hadley Simpson a lap ago. And yeah, within a couple of hundredths of a second of braking that fastest lap pace. Beckett. Collins, oh, a huge snap of oversteer there as he bounces off the curb. It doesn't stop him then hammering the very next curb, but that time keeping the car a little bit more stable underneath him. They ride the curbs because it does help to rotate the car. It creates a weight shift from one side to the other, and that helps to rotate the car. But if you hit the curb slightly wrong, it can cause you issues. Well, amazingly, Jack Collins now sets an outright fastest first sector. So that slide was the quickest way to do that corner, clearly, because he's gone quicker through the first sector, which encompasses Copse and then the whole Maggots-Beckett sequence, quicker than anyone else has gone all race long. Oh, bit of a moment there. That's the 27 car running a little bit wide of Alex Duncan, and Mike Taylor trying to get past him. Now, this is for third place in Pro-Am, so this is a class position that they're battling over. Taylor, of course, would have been ahead, I guess, of Duncan had he not had that little tangle with Cameron Pratt-Thompson on the opening lap. So this is the third and fourth place cars in Pro-Am, and the next car behind them is Ali Jafali, who still leads in Am now by nearly a second and a half. So he's looking pretty good at the moment. Very wide line for Taylor into the loop, a very sideways line for Alex Duncan. But they come off the corner, I think, at pretty much the same pace. Jafali there closing in on these two, actually, and again, because you score points based on where you finish overall, if Jafali can buy into this battle, he could gain a couple of really important championship points in his quest for the AM title. He came into this race, where was he? 19 points adrift of the championship lead. We're on to the final lap of the race, meanwhile, and the lead gap just creeps back down again, but Simpson's done this a couple of times. He's got close to Clark, but just can't quite get close enough to make a move or force a mistake or a defensive move out of the leader. Clark has managed this race really well, managed his tyres really well. Oops, that is a spin for James Townsend at Brooklands. Townsend gets the number 3 car back underway though. Down into Stowe corner for the last time come the leading two. They've got, what, half the length of the hanger straight back to Mackenzie Douglas in third, and then Harry Gamble in fourth. Gamble, remember, started 8th on the grid. That's been a good drive from Gamble to get to 4th position. A Pro-Am victory heading his way. Here's his nearest Pro-Am rival, Nick White, defending very busily now from Jack Collins, who tries to go right round the outside at Stowe. The car is sideways on the dirty side of the road, but he's still there. That was really brave stuff from Jack Collins, who's had a couple of sideways moments recently, but has been going quicker now than at any other point in the race. He carves through on the inside line and then parks it on the right-hand apex to prevent the switchback from Nick White. Really good racing that from Jack Collins, and he does go through. Cameron Pratt-Thompson will now want to try and do the same, knowing that he's only got half a lap left in which to do it. So through Abbey Corner they go, and Nick White then drops another position. Out front though, it does look as though Archie Clark is on course for another race win. This is the 4th round of the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship, the most competitive this championship has been for a number of seasons, and yet we're going to have the same driver, it would seem, winning all of the first 4 races. He's not winning them by a long way, he's not dominating, it's not like he's a second a lap faster than anybody else. Him and Hadley Simpson have been virtually inseparable on lap times, and actually Hadley still holds that fastest lap of the race. But Archie Clark just seems to find a way to hold the lead. He doesn't buckle under pressure, and he is going to claim that 4th victory of the season. It is Archie Clark, the winner. It's Hadley Simpson who comes home in 2nd place. Mackenzie Douglas will be 3rd, and Harry Gamble should then come home in 4th position. Yep, there he is, the Pro-Am win to Harry Gamble. Robert Crone in 5th. Jack Collins 6th. Did Nick White hold on to 7th place? Yes, he did. This, meanwhile, is Ali Jafali. Ali Jafali wins in the AM class, and it's a fairly healthy margin in the end over Luke Shaw. Jafali will be well chuffed with that. That's a really good race from him. 2.5 seconds ahead of Luke Shaw by the checkered flag. Well, Archie Clark, your winner, extends that championship lead now to beyond 50 points. And of course, Nick White not having a great race there further benefits Archie. He was already 47 points ahead of Nick White. White only ended up 7th, so that gap's going to go out significantly. Robert Cronin, though, was only 2 places ahead of Nick, so I'm not convinced that Robert will have done enough there to overhaul Nick White for 2nd in the championship. It's just the regular 35 points available for a race win in this race. Those 40-minute feature races are worth double points, so 70 points for a win. And that's part of the reason why Clark is so far ahead, because he had a really good run in the longer race at Donington. Harry Gamble gets a Pro-Am class victory, and 4th place overall as well for Harry. That will probably shift him up a position or so in the championship. Of course, it's Ali Jafali who gets the win in the AM class. There is Ali, number 63. The SBM liveried car, number 63, wins in the AM class. And Ali Jafali, as I said, really well measured drive from him too. So, Archie Clark, your winner. for the 4th time this season from 4 races. Hadley Simpson 2nd and Mackenzie Douglas completes the podium. All of them pro drivers. The best pro-am was Harry Gamble in 4th, ahead of Robert Cronin in 5th, Jack Collins 6th and Nick White in 7th. 8th was Cameron Pratt-Thompson, 9th Alex Duncan, and the top 10 completed by Mike Taylor. 11th place was your AM winner Ali Jafari, 2.5 seconds in the end ahead of Luke Shaw and Carl Garnett, who complete the AM podium. Colin White was next ahead of James Townsend, Oliver Fordham, Emma Tomlinson and Amy Tomlinson for Raceway Motorsport, completing the 18-car grid. Let's take a look back, shall we then, at some of the highlights of race number 2. The second Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship race at Silverstone saw a big battle on the opening lap between front row starters Archie Clark and Hadley Simpson. Hadley Simpson desperate to stop Archie Clark's winning streak, which so far extended across all of the 3 first races of the year. Simpson nearly got him through Beckett's on the first lap. Clark chopped across his nose though and held on to the race lead, whilst further back Cameron Pratt-Thompson and Mike Taylor made a little bit of contact, after which Taylor was lucky not to have a full rotation. Robert Cronin picked a position up at the expense of Jack Collins at Stowe Corner. That was 5th position, whilst Nick White's race wasn't really going all that well. He made a rare mistake at the loop, opened the door for Robert Cronin, and then drove off the circuit, waving Cronin through to break into that top 5. Further back, there was drama for James Townsend, who got too much curb at Brooklands, rotated the car and dropped down a position or so. It was a 4th win, though, from 4 races for Archie Clark. Can anyone stop him? Tune in next time at Donington Park to find out.